Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's the first day of 2022. I guess, thank goodness, that 2021 and 20 is behind us. But I just wanted to say thanks for joining us and wish everybody a happy new year out there. And again, unfortunately, due to this pandemic that we're going through, I'm doing the show solo because Steve and I guess we're both in quarantine. And it's unfortunate because, I sure miss my partner and, I mean, it just continues to go on. And unfortunately, but Steve, I'm fingers crossed he'll be back with us next week. And like I said, it's just nonstop, this thing that's been going on, and it just seems to be getting worse. So we're just trying to be careful here. And, the show, again, we're not doing our video this week, but we hope and fingers crossed that we'll be back next week. So, we normally start our show off with the monologue, and obviously it's, something, and I'm going to put this out, our monologue this week, kind of as a question, because, and I don't want it to be tied to this pandemic, but unfortunately it is. But we're looking at, and I would love to hear from you guys, and send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com on your thoughts. But, we seem to be moving ahead, right? We can't get enough of sports in this country, and, kind of that's what our show is all about. But, a lot of things are going on. When you look at the quality of, talent that they're putting out there due to this, right? In particular, the NBA. There's, even 1/3 of the refs, they're out because of COVID protocol, right? So, and there's over 100, and we'll call this replacement players, if you will, right? Some teams are just getting hit harder than others, but are we really putting the best product on the field, on the court or the field, whatever it may be? When 3 or 4 starters are out. How about this? How about the NBA come back and say, okay, since we're putting an inferior product on the court, how about we adjust ticket prices? And maybe that gives the opportunity for the average American family who can't afford to go see an NBA game due to the ridiculous cost. How about Adam Silver come back and say, you know what, we're going to have a half price day instead of the ridiculous price that, they charge for a family to go. I think it's time, to reassess. Are we putting a product on the field or the court that is equivalent to the cost of what we're paying to see it? And this is going on. And like I said, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if we pause this season or not. But, I'm not on board with seeing, guys that weren't good enough to make the NBA playing NBA games. And ultimately, it's probably going to affect the end of the season, who makes the playoffs, who doesn't. So every team has been affected by it. NFL, same thing. When you look at it, some teams are getting hit, and like a whole offensive line is, in COVID protocol. What are we doing here? I mean, is this right? Is this something that it's ultimately going to affect the season, right? Here's an example. Kirk Cousins, he's not playing. It's a big game for the Minnesota Vikings this week, and they're without their starting quarterback. I don't know. I think it's something that I would love to hear from you guys. Steve and I would both love to hear from you about whether or not, this is the right approach. And as Steve and I have always said, yes, we get it. It's about money. But I'm just, I'm wondering, what's it going to take, for what happens if Tom Brady has COVID protocol? Are we putting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the field without the best player in the game. It's just something to think about because it's happening. We thought we were past all this, but it's still happening. People are still going to games. It's just something that we need to think about. When I think about watching an NFL game, and it's not the team that should be on that field. It's not the best talent across the board. Something to think about. Send us an email at sportswithmanoandmano@gmail.com. Would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, our monologue is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York. And again, whatever the product, wherever it's going, and when you need to get there, Coriano Trucking will solve all those needs for you. And we hope their families and everybody enjoys the New Year's as well. So let's jump right into college football because, yesterday was 2 big games. And obviously, I know you're educated fans, so you know that I had Michigan over Georgia. And boy, they got annihilated. I mean, it really wasn't even a competitive game, and it's very disappointing. I just didn't think that Georgia's offense had enough to beat Michigan. But you got to lay the blame on Michigan's defense. They just couldn't stop James Cook, and they couldn't stop Stetson Bennett. And the offense looked formidable for Georgia. But big disappointment from a Michigan perspective. I thought they'd be better prepared for the game. And they just really got, taken apart last night in one of the semifinal games. The other semifinal game, obviously, was Alabama and Cincinnati. And we talked a little bit last week that, it seemed a good opportunity for a Cinderella story with Cincinnati and, coming off the year that Desmond Ridder had. But again, Nick Saban puts these guys on the field. It's just, as good as it gets in college football. They took care of business, which sets up an all-SEC national championship game with Alabama and Georgia. And we have time before that because the game isn't until a week from this coming Monday. But Alabama looked really well, and Bryce Young didn't have to have a great game. Alabama was just far superior. Doesn't diminish what Luke Fickell has done with Cincinnati in the year that they've had. But what a game. 204 yards from James Robinson for Alabama. And somebody else that really stood out for me, actually, I think it was Brian Robinson, but another guy that really, really impressed me was Nakobe Dean from Georgia. This linebacker, I haven't seen a guy play like that in a long time, and I don't want to, put him in a category he doesn't belong, but he stepped up. He was all over the field. What a dominating player. Now, it shouldn't really come as a surprise. He was the Butkus Award winner as the best linebacker in the country, but I just couldn't have been more impressed with how he played and the way that Georgia just took care of business. I thought Harbaugh would have his guys better prepared, but it didn't turn out that way. So a week from Monday, we got the national championship, and you know what? I said this before. I think the committee got it right. I think those were the 4 teams that should have been in the semifinals, and as it turns out, we got the 2 best teams in the country playing for the national championship. We'll talk about that game. We'll see what unfolds in the week's preparation before the game. So Steve and I will make our national championship picks next week. Good college football and just great talent and impressive. But we're not done. It's still bowl. It's New Year's Day. It's the first day of 2022, which, of course, means Rose Bowl and all those other games. And again, let's talk about the topic that has come up. A lot of kids are opting out, right? Kenny Pickett, for Pitt, those guys. But how about Ohio State? Wilson and Olave, they're not up. They're not playing in the game. So again, got to respect these guys' decisions. Their futures at stake. I always looked at it a different way. There's two ways to look at it. This is a showcase for their talent, but I guess the draft analyzers for the NFL teams already know what kind of talent they have, but it kind of diminishes the allure of the Rose Bowl and stuff. But again, Ohio State and Utah, it should be a good game. There's some other games, but again, the big game was the national championship. But again, we talked about one of our local St. Joe's product that Luke Whippler plays for Ohio State, so we wanted to wish him the best in the Rose Bowl, and should be a fun day. It's always been a fun day watching college football. But there were other games. I wanted to bring a couple of things up because we looked at, we always think of Division I, and of course it's where the best talent is. But the Division II, Division III, they're not lacking in that kind of talent either, just not on a wide scale basis. But I wanted to give a shout out to Ferris State, who was the Division II national championship winner this year in college football. And I did, from a personal perspective, one of the semifinals was Valdosta State. That's who Ferris State beat in the final. But Valdosta State beat the Colorado School of Mines. Why is that significant? Well, it may only be significant to us because I have a nephew who goes to Colorado School of Mines. You don't assimilate usually them with college football, but that's kind of impressive. These are very, very smart kids, and got to give a shout out to them and a shout out to Ferris State. Division III, I guess maybe the biggest surprise in Division III was that Mount Union, who's kind of the perennial Division III powerhouse, did not win it this year. Mary Hardin-Baylor from Texas won it. They're actually a very talented, and I guess they were always in the mix in Division III, but I wanted to give a shout out to them as well. And listen, college football is starting to wrap up, but next week's the game, and we're going to talk more and more about it. So let's move on. We'll get to the NFL in a minute, but again, we'll talk about the NBA, and again, there's this pandemic seems to be wreaking havoc there in more sports than others for some reason. But I do want to give a note to. I've been watching this guy closely, this Ja Morant, and he is really a player. So the NBA and Adam Silver, they got nothing but prosperity going forward because they got a lot of young talent in that league. And, mix them up with the normal guys, right? The Currys, the LeBrons, but the NBA, the season's so long, I guess the big thing is Klay Thompson's coming back after 2 years out, and that's not going to hurt their chances. Golden State, they were already the best record in the NBA. So... Again, Adam Silver, hey, cut some ticket prices and let some people go see basketball, whether or not you're putting a good product on the court. 1/3 of the NBA referees are out because of this COVID protocol. So, again, early in the season, we'll catch up with the NBA going forward. I just wanted to mention it. And here was an interesting thing: Kemba Walker, right, benched by the Knicks. I think he's still got some in the tank, but he doesn't fit in with Tom Thibodeau's plan for the Knicks, who, and you can't question him. But he comes back and scores a triple-double on Christmas Day. And, listen, if guys like Carmelo Anthony are still playing in the league, then there's, the Kemba Walkers, they're going to come out and have these kind of big games. It's I guess it's good to see. But he came to the Knicks with big expectations, just doesn't fit it in the plan. So look for him to be moved at some point. Minor trades, Rondo to the Cavs, nothing, no blockbusters in the NBA, but that season's got a long way to go, so we'll get back to them. Really good to see the National Hockey League coming back after a suspension of the season. And I think it's kind of obvious as why the NHL has had more cancellations than any other sport, right? Because there's more teams in Canada from there in the NHL. And Canada's been just absolutely stringent on their reaction to the COVID situation. So the NBA was the NHL was kind of on respite for almost 2 weeks, but that's slowly coming back. But if again, look for more games to be canceled. But it was good to see, and like I said, we make no mistake about it, we're Ranger fans here, and the Rangers look really good. They actually beat Tampa Bay, who is, one of the top 2 or 3 teams, obviously, in the league, but really good. So the NHL is coming back, and I couldn't be happier because I love the talent across the league in the NHL, and it's just ongoing, and the prospects for the NHL to get more and more of an audience as the NBA gives us an inferior product is, I think, look for that to happen. It's great to see. There's great players in the NHL, and they're back in business. So we move on, of course, to the National Football League, and again, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but 2 games left, right? First 17-game season in NFL, excuse me. But playoff implications. So a lot of things, teams that are on the bubble, let's see what happens. Hopefully they have, not a completely depleted team. But when you look at it, right, big game for Kirk Cousins, and he's not playing. So how does that impact the overall thing? We talked about some of the best teams in the league with, and I actually, maybe it was on purpose, but I meant to bring up that the Green Bay Packers look formidable, meaning it's either going to be the Bucs or it's going to be the Packers. The Cowboys, they're just too inconsistent for me to think that, they're going to make the Super Bowl. But the NFL, like I said, there's only 2 games left. We're going to see how that pans out in the next couple of weeks. But again, like I said, there's a lot happening, and we don't know what's going to happen in the final game of the season. But again, playoff teams and non-playoff teams, it's going to be decided by who's playing and who's not playing, and it's unfortunate. But again, they want these seasons to go on. They're still packing the stadiums. Let's see how that pans out. But you get an opportunity to see some guys like Davis Mills, right, for Houston. He was kind of on the board. A lot of people were looking at him as a potential quarterback, but this situation in Houston, which obviously is a mess anyway, but he's gotten an opportunity to show that he has a good chance to be a good quarterback in this league. So there's some positives that come up. There was one thing that I did notice, and I've been touting this out because that I have a lot of Buffalo Bill fans that are in my friends' inner circle, and I did see something. And I've always said that Buffalo, they got this Stephon Diggs from the Vikings, and it was a great trade, and he's absolutely a great player. I want to send this out to him. He doesn't need to trash talk. They went into New England. They did win the game, which, I thought New England would win. But Buffalo, they got a lot of talent. And note to Stephon Diggs, you're a quality, classy kid. You don't need to trash talk and get into it with the New England fans. Let your performance speak for itself. And listen, the Buffalo Bills are a really good team. They'll be there. I just hate to see when a quality kid starts to let his talent do the talking, off the field. And again, take it for what it's worth, Stephon. You have a great career ahead of you. Go down as a classy guy, and you'll always be remembered. And that's my 2 cents on that one. But because I did see it, and I said, wait a minute, this guy's he's been a good player, and he doesn't need to do it. So, from a Green Bay Packers perspective, the year Aaron Rodgers is having is undeniable. And, whether he's with Green Bay or not next year, he sure as heck isn't going to retire. But what a year he's having. And again, I lost a lot of respect for him by the way he handled the offseason and kind of left the Packers dangling. But, he's still loaded with talent. And where he plays next year is still a mystery. We'll see how that goes. But our NFL picks this week, and again, this is where I miss Steve because, we take 2 games a week. And here are my picks for the week. Chicago is playing the New York Giants, and we've talked about it. The performance that the Giants put up, week after week it's just ugly. And, listen, Andy Dalton or not, I look for the Bears to take that game. They're at home. And here's an interesting game, is Dallas and Arizona. So, touched a little bit on Dallas. Their inconsistency and, they're going up against Kyler Murray in Arizona. And it's in Dallas. But I'm going with Arizona this time because I see the inconsistency of Dallas drives me crazy. We know that the Cardinals have a lot of talent. This guy Murray's having a great season. Yes, they've been inconsistent too. But I'm going to go with Arizona for the upset on the road. And those are my 2 picks. And our NFL segment, of course, is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. For all your sales and service needs, there isn't a better Toyota dealer in the Northeast than them. And like I said, if a Toyota is what you're looking for, go to Lynch Toyota because they'll take care of you. And we wish their families all the best from Sports with Mono and Mono. So as we... like I said, there's a lot going on. College basketball is going to get underway as the season progresses, normally right after New Year's things. But you got the Baylor, you got Duke, they're 1-2. Looking forward to watching a lot of college basketball during the winter time. It's really great as we get prepared for the March Madness. But, those look like the 2 best teams right now. But Gonzaga, of course, they're a quality team too. So a lot going on across the sports thing. And yeah, games have been canceled in college basketball as well. And we certainly expected that. But like I said, that really picks up after New Year's. So they play a lot of tournaments, if you will, across the United States. But, we're going to get a chance to see some quality basketball in the next couple of months. So listen, folks, got a couple of random points of interest here. I did touch on it a week ago about, the NHL making the final decision that the NHL players won't be playing in the Olympics. But I think it's a little bigger than that. I was looking at it, some of the COVID protocols that are being put in place for the Beijing Olympics. It's going to spread across more than just, hockey. It's unfortunate. But again, what does that do? Does that mean some of the best athletes in the world may not be going to the Olympics? Yes, that's what it means. So that's just something to keep an eye on. The Olympics, that's happening. It's happening in China, and it's a lot of people are nervous, but I hope it doesn't deplete the quality of the athlete that's going to the Olympics this year. So we'll move on from that. The NFL Hall of Fame nominees are coming out, and this is something that Steve and I talk about time and time again. We can go down the list. Here's one name, Devin Hester, up for nomination. Any denying he was one of the great return guys of all time? No. Is he a Hall of Famer? No. If Billy White Shoes Johnson's not in the Hall of Fame, then Devin Hester doesn't go in the Hall of Fame. But that's a name, and he may get in because he's the most prolific punt and kick returner, and absolutely, the best at what he did. But is that Hall of Fame worthy? A couple other names I just wanted to bring up before we get off this topic. And, we go down the list, and Steve and I, we say we go down the list. If he's a surefire Hall of Fame, we say yes. If he's not, we say no. Here's a couple of names. Jared Allen, really, really good player, Hall of Fame? No. But again, when you look at it, you got guys like Dan Hampton, Howie Long, Warren Sapp get in. Why not Jared Allen? But I don't think that happens. Rondé Barber, you know what? Rondé Barber had a great career. First ballot Hall of Famer? No. Will he eventually get there? I think so. I actually do. But here's a name I think Steve and I both would agree. We talk about offensive lineman Tony Boselli. I say yeah. I mean, if you're letting some of these other guys in, then he absolutely belongs to get in. Other guys, Andre Johnson, no. Torrey Holt, aside from the greatest show on turf, is it Hall of Fame worthy? I mean, he put up great numbers. I say no. If he got in 2-3 years down the road, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Sam Mills, linebacker, probably one of the best three linebacking players on a team with him, Swillig, and Ricky Jackson. And I say if Harry Carson's in the Hall of Fame, then Sam Mills belongs in the Hall of Fame. Harry didn't get in first time. Sam doesn't deserve to get in first time, but I wouldn't be disappointed if he got in down the road. Here's another name, Richard Seymour. And all I could say with Richard Seymour is if Dan Hampton is in the Hall of Fame, then I have no problem with Richard Seymour going in. The fact that Hampton got in, Seymour won't get in, at least not right away. But you look at other guys, DeMarcus Ware, Cowboys, Hall of Fame? No. Reggie Wayne. Reggie Wayne, actually, I would put him in before I'd put Torrey Holt in, but I'm not sure he's going to get in the first time around, but he's had a great career. I wouldn't have any problem with him going to the Hall of Fame down the road. A couple other names, Patrick Willis, Bryant Young. No, not Hall of Fame quality. But we're very particular about the Hall of Fame, so I just wanted to mention those names. Give us your thoughts if you think we missed the boat with other guys like Leroy Butler, Andre Johnson. Yeah, are they Hall of Famers? Not right out of the gate. So we move on from that. A couple other little random points of interest, and this was certainly of note. The Boston Bruins are going to be retiring Willie O'Ree. His number, I think it was 22, if I'm not mistaken. But we talk about Jackie Robinson, but Willie O'Ree broke the color barrier in the NHL, and it's something that I'm glad that the Boston Bruins are doing. It's opened the door down the road for a lot of people. to play in the NHL, but congratulations to him. He's really overlooked when you talk about breaking color barriers in major sports. Willie O'Ree, he's getting in. Here's a random point of interest, and you may not know the name, Matt Gamichik. And who was he? He was on that plane. Remember back in, I think it was 2018, this Humboldt Broncos team from Canada, plane crash. Like 18 coaches and players were killed. He survived the plane crash. He got a contract, so he's actually recovered to a point where he's playing in the EC, East Coast Hockey League. And, that's a feel-good story when you talk about sports. To survive something like that and to persevere. I'm just delighted for him. Wish him all the best after such a devastating, how do you even get over that emotionally, much less physically, but big shout out to him. And I will say this, the San Antonio Spurs, but Becky Hammond has been an assistant coach under Pop for 7 seasons. She finally got recognized, so she's going to take over the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA. She's a basketball person, believe it or not. When you think of all of the coaches in the league, she's garnered a lot of respect across the league, and congratulations to her. So I also, as you know, we close with our notable passings, and this year, as we closed out 2021, I guess first on the list would be John Madden. And Steve and I have talked about John Madden for a long time. I wasn't 100% sure that he was really the coach of the Raiders during that tenure of his, but you can't deny his record. And when I say that, I mean Al Davis had his hands on the steering wheel, I think, a lot, but can't deny it. He has the highest winning percentage of any coach with 100 wins. And, I gained a lot more respect. I did rewatch A Football Life on the NFL Network on John Madden. And listen, on the field, he transformed himself into one of the most prolific sports announcers, and certainly in the history of the NFL. Teamed up with Pat Summerall, called at least 15 Super Bowls. But John Madden was 85, and you can't think of football without saying Madden Sports, right? And he made a lot of money on it. And you know what? He was actually a pretty good guy. And when I say that, meaning he interacted with the public. So I'm gonna take half a step back and give him his just due as not just a coach, but also his impact in the NFL and the Madden Cruiser, all that kind of stuff. He was a pretty good guy, and we're gonna absolutely acknowledge his passing. And actually, the NFL will do a moment of silence for John Madden on Sunday's games. Sticking in the world of professional sports, Sam Jones, 88 years old. And, a lot of our younger folks may not know who Sam Jones was. I didn't really get to see him play. He retired in 1969, 88 years old, but he has the second most NBA titles in history, behind only, of course, Bill Russell. But Sam Jones was a great basketball player on great teams, and he was always a class act off the court. And we certainly wanted to mention Sam Jones passing, 88. A lot of nicknames. I think he went to North Carolina Central, and 10 NBA titles. Amazing. And this just came in just heard this morning, Dan Reeves, former coach of the Broncos, the Falcons, and longtime player with the Cowboys, coach with the Cowboys, passed away at age 77. And, Dan Reeves, he won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. He won as a coach, assistant coach under Tom Landry with the Cowboys. Took the Broncos to the Super Bowl, took the Falcons to the Super Bowl. So when you look at a resume, and first year with the Giants, had a great season, and then it seemed like he just lost control of the team for somewhat, but it doesn't diminish his overall record in the National Football League, and he was 77 years old. And you know what? Dan Reeves was a pretty decent guy and very prominent, at 77 years old. And one other from the world of sports, and we talk about sports, and Nicholas Kaus, and he was a lot of people obviously won't know him. He was a junior hockey player from Germany. He sustained a head injury during a game, and unfortunately, he passed. So it makes you wonder, what these guys endure, and the physicalness of sports. And Steve and I always recollect, and it's close to Steve's heart because it was Boston University. But when you think of something like that, you think of Travis Roy, his first game in college, and sustained just a devastating hit and was paralyzed from then on. And we always want to give a shout out to somebody like Nicholas, and unfortunately only 18 years old, but we take it for granted how what these guys and the risk involved in playing sports across the board. And listen, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention, and we bring this up too, we mention sometimes the world of entertainment, but Betty White, 99 years old. And, you talk about sustaining a great career. Can't say that I was a fan of the Golden Girls, didn't really watch it, but you can't deny, how prominent it was, a television show, and she was in the mix with B. Arthur and those guys, but she was 99. I certainly remember her as Sue Ann Nivens from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was, one of the greatest shows ever. But she was 99, and, a couple of weeks short of her 100th birthday. But she was, she was a class act, and she was very prominent in animal rights and all that kind of stuff. And just wanted to make sure we shouted that out for Betty, 99. Great career. But again, Steve and I bring up our notable passings not as to end on the show on a down note, but to give acknowledgement to the contributions, whether it be sports, entertainment, whatever. And we had a couple of weeks where we didn't have anything to report. Unfortunately, this week we did, but we do it as a memorial to those folks. So here we are again, come to the end of our show, and hopefully we'll be back with our show and my partner next week. And Steve, stay healthy, stay safe. But this show is mono, and I know it's not the same without it, but know that we're going to be back in the game next week. So until that, we wish everybody a very happy and healthy new year in 2022. As they say, it's got to be better than 2021. But we wish everybody, our fans alike, and please send us an email at sportswithmono@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what we covered today and what we should be covering in future shows. But thanks, everybody. Enjoy, the new year, and stay healthy and stay safe. And we'll catch up to you next week.